I'm Michaela Bray.
And I'm Valentina Noacco, and in February 8 of us from the hydrology group at Bristol University organized a one-day workshop to discuss gender equality issues and how we can improve it in hydrology. And we had three amazing invited speakers, Anna Klock from the University of Reading, Joshua Larsen from Birmingham University, and Elena Toth from the University of Bologna.
It was an action-packed day, but nevertheless I still managed to find time to catch up with Dr. Josh Larsen to find out his perspectives on quality through equality.
We hope you enjoy it.
Hi Josh, I really enjoyed your presentation this morning. One of the key things that came out from your presentation was how tricky it can be to balance family life with work.
I mean, yeah, it's a new pressure on your time.
Yeah.
It's a new adventure for everyone. So not just trying to create time where you were spending it doing something else. Maybe you were having new hobbies, or maybe you were just working. But you're also adjusting to new demands and pressures and expectations. So, but it's a lot of fun as well.
Okay. Have you ever experienced conscious or unconscious gender bias yourself?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, I guess I should rule out experiencing unconscious. It would be hard if it was unconscious. It would be hard for me to know that it happened, I guess. But,
sure.
But for conscious bias myself, not. I mean, never. But certainly, my partner's in academia, and colleagues and friends, a lot in academia, and a lot of anecdotal or even direct stories do come down. On issues of gender bias. Yeah.
So Josh, in your presentation you talked about taking parental leave. More and more men are taking parental leave. How was it for you?
Parental leave was fun. You have a new baby. It's a time to relax and enjoy this new person in your life. So fantastic. Yeah.
Sure. Did you come across any negative attitudes towards you
in the workplace?
Yeah.
No. I've had two kids, and both of them are two different countries, two different institutions. I guess kind of different workplaces, but both have been very positive. Yeah. The first one I was a postdoc, so I didn't have any teaching or administrative responsibilities. But it was a wonderful place to have a child, and very supportive. The second one, I had a lot of extra teaching and administrative responsibilities by then, so it's a little bit of a different juggling act in terms of making sure everyone was aware of my going on leave and making sure all the arrangements are in place. But I found all the colleagues that I had to deal with were extremely helpful and supportive.
Oh, that's brilliant. This morning in your talk you spoke about the family gap and the leaky pipe. Could you just explain a little bit more about that, please?
The leaky pipeline, or the family gap, is the general emergence in all empirical data for many, not just in academia, but across all professions, if you like, that usually require a degree of some kind, that as women progress from the 20s and 30s through their 30s into their 40s and 50s, there is a stark and observable drop-off in the level of high earners or the people in high positions in those fields. So they're still there, they're not there as much, so they may have dropped out of the profession entirely, or if they do stay in the profession, they're certainly not earning as much, and they're certainly not in those higher positions within that field. So it's that general, it's that drop-off during that stage of your life.
And what do you think we can do to tackle this?
There are many tackling it also presupposes that we've somehow identified all the root causes. Sure. I think most people are pretty confident that it's a time in your life where many things are changing at once. You're starting new jobs, you may be considering having family and those sort of things all together. And it's also a time where you would want to get some promotion and some progress in your career. So it's like a critical stage for a number of factors in your life. And so trying to manage those competing priorities the career is often the one that loses out. And so tackling that means that we need to somehow have mechanisms in place for women to stay in the field, or if they're not yet in there, so they're having the kids, but they're still struggling to get that first position, that we're able to take all of that into account when hiring and going through the hiring process. And there's heaps of specifics around that. Some places are much better doing it than others. There are a whole suite of things that seem to work a bit better, and there are some things that probably don't work very well.
During your presentation, Josh, you gave some anecdotes about how women are more ready to move for their partner's jobs rather than the other way around. Would you like to expand a little bit on that?
What is it? Oh, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I wouldn't want to say there are these immutable differences between men and women that are causing such a difference. But I think that there is generally, it's not always the case, of course, there are always exceptions, but I think that given that it is so common that you would hear it, or so common that you hear the stories about the female moving for the male partner rather than the male moving for the female partner, that women are better able to put themselves in someone else's shoes. They are better able to consider themselves in a new environment, project themselves into a place where they could go, whereas men are probably much more concerned with their status here and now, and do struggle to put themselves in those other people's shoes and in those other situations, and so they kind of need to get there first and to experience it and be there to then see how they would manage in that new environment. So perhaps it's something as general as that, but it's probably also just something to do with societal norms and expectations also playing a role. You know, that it's just generally been the case that that's always the way it's been done, and maybe there's some element of just inertia there that people are still going along with that general expectation. So there's probably a number of factors.
Okay. You've worked in several countries. You mentioned that. Have you experienced different attitudes in these different countries to work-life balance?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Moving from, I think Australia has quite a good attitude towards work-life balance. Switzerland has it. I'd say they all have good attitudes in their own ways to work-life balance if you're willing to take it. I think the big difference comes in how people perceive the institutional and the general scientific pressures upon them. So in the UK and in Australia, people seem to be much more susceptible to these broader pressures and expectations placed on them for publishing, for career progression, and these sort of things. Maybe it's the institutions, maybe it's the expectations for what you're supposed to achieve in terms of research performance. But I found that for example, in Central Europe, Switzerland and Germany and so on, those pressures aren't as well. The pressures are still there, but they're not interpreted to mean that we're just going to, have a terrible work-life balance as a result.
Finally, Josh, what are your recommendations for a healthy work-life balance?
What do I recommend? Well, today's workshop and event is a bit about sharing some experiences, but also doing some bias training and recognising where some of those biases exist. And I know a lot of institutions are implementing or have some framework in place to enable that kind of recognition and that kind of training. But I think that we should be a bit more ambitious. I think that training can often be the default kind of solution that is put in place when we say we want to tackle diversity and gender issues. I think we really need to be a bit more ambitious in that. I think that we really need to think about societal norms and trying to push things in a different direction in terms of what we expect the role of men and women to be, both in the work and at home, how you take leave, how you manage families. And that has to be broader than academia. It has to be with government, it has to be within all walks of life, all parts of the community, if you want that change to occur. So I would really encourage young people to really to advocate and push those kinds of societal changes. So changing the rules about what people can and can't take and make things more flexible, but then also nudging society to accept those new things as something that can be done. You know, so even if you had something in place for men, make it an expectation, or make it just normal for men to do that, to take that leave. So I think we need to sort of step up the ambition.
Okay, thank you very much
Pleasure.
for taking time out of the workshop to come and talk to me.
Pleasure.
Some other people working alongside us. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the workshop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.